So, have you explored for a while, Margaret, or are you relatively new to into your spiritual metaphysical exploration?
I'm relatively new per se. I would say maybe it's started January of 2024. It started in from my dad passed away in 2023 in the summer, and because I lived with him and cared for him, I think it was the stress of my financial situation because his pay took care of household, condo maintenance fees and things like that. That somehow I saw an ad on manifestation, and that's how the whole journey began from manifestation. Then there were other videos that popped up that had this spiritual theme and the chosen ones and about the earth evolution and the ascension topic. And from that point on in 2024, um, from some of these videos that I end up following or watching more consistently, that's how I learned about this whole process and got into, really getting into learning about what's happening and learning and being exposed to channelers and things like that. So now I'm
Right.
like full on. We're coming to the crunch final line, ready for the birth of new earth and all that kind of stuff. So it's like,
Okay.
let's get it going.
Yeah, very nice. Well, and I was going to comment too that if you found yourself in a collection of individuals that Lewis was associated with, then you found yourself in a good collection of individuals. And I'm not talking about just this one, but the individuals that are familiar with Lewis in the other things that he's doing would be similar because I'm familiar with his energy. And if he finds himself drawn to a particular movement someplace, then it's a movement that who's ever there is going to get something out of. Otherwise, he wouldn't be drawn to it. So nice to have you with us. Um, and I'm sure you've already heard that from Lewis. So, of course, I don't know everybody here really well yet. Many of us are longtime explorers. So I've done this. I've explored deeply, I'll say, because my initiation, my initial exploration, I tend to do that. I tend to get into things deeply right away, and so this was no different than that. And so for about 35 years, I've explored this type of stuff, done many things. But channeling really has, as I've said before, was always actually it was the first stuff that I ran into, and it's always been the mainstay. It's always been the foundation of what I was doing, even though I was exploring Aboriginal Dreamtime stuff. I explored Celtic stuff. I explored shamanism. Explored Native American things, many things. But the channeling stuff was always there as a foundation. And had I think that those of us that have been around in the late 1900s and the early 2000s had the fortune, I'll just put it that way, to have at our disposal some sources of information and channeling that were quite good, that shared some really impactful and deep information. And now, of course, there are a huge number of individuals that are sharing information in this way, and some do a very nice job as well. But it's become different from what it once was. Um, you know, um, because of the ideas, and of course, this is my take on things, but because of the ideas that a lot of people still hold, even individuals who are explorers, but we tend to think of things that are of this nature as something that's way out there someplace. So when individuals used to channel before, even Jane Roberts and individuals like that, the idea was that they were connecting with something that was very far distant. Their higher self was way out there someplace. Well, now, of course, there's a different idea about that. It's you. It's right there. It's in attendance. There's nothing that's closer than what you are. And so now the phenomenon has become different. It is you're seeing many more individuals who, as they share information from the deeper parts of themselves, don't need to remove themselves, their consciousness, I guess I'll call it, their everyday consciousness, from the experience. Because what we're all doing, of course, within this period of ours, this shifting period of ours, whatever you want to call it, is is becoming more and more familiar with that aspect of ourselves. And so the process, then this type of process has changed. I know that from the time that I've done this, I am typically in attendance, I would say at least 70% of me. Sometimes it's a little bit less than that, but typically about 70% of me is in attendance. And it's rare that I am, that there's some phrase or something like that that I haven't heard, even though it happens on occasion, but that's pretty rare. And the way it works for me is that typically a few days before I'll have some idea about like the subject matter, what the subject matter is going to be, because I have a constant interaction with that aspect of myself. There's a dialogue and information that's being shared with me pretty much all day long, as long as I participate. That's really what it's about. And so at times that I get too busy, whether it's at my place of employment or whatever it is, then of course I'm not getting that in the traditional way anyway. For me, traditional. But I've done this verbally for, I don't know, maybe 3.5 years or so, uh, intentionally like this. And then I had an audio podcast that I began probably 8 years ago or something like that. And I was doing it there. And I realized it as I was editing that that was going on. So we've had, and if you continue to join these guys in the group, you will be exposed to a variety of individuals that do this. And what you'll also find is that there's lots of unique ways of expressing it, which is really kind of fun and kind of nice. It's kind of like us, you know. None of our perspectives or perceptions of life or any events are exactly the same as somebody else's. They're all unique and different. And so that's where you'll see that in channeling as well. It's always going to be unique and different. You're never going to find somebody who will even share the same information in exactly the same way because it's coming through a different source. And it's also being interpreted by the individual, which um, this may be a little surprising, probably not if you've explored a little bit, but there's no such thing as pure information because everything that shows up on your doorstep, and that means what you're hearing or whatever, you're going to filter. You're going to filter it through your belief systems. And so everything that comes to you, you will alter in some way, shape, or form. Now, typically, you'll do that in a way that suits your situation, because, of course, that more expansive you, from my perspective, is always there guiding your psychological ship, perhaps we can say, that interface that's going on. So anyway, um, so yeah, it's and if you've experienced other channelers, you may find that my focus shifts relatively rapidly. If you've seen Ray before, his is now the same way, happens really quickly, and some other individuals are like that. It can be, if as we involve ourselves in the discussion afterwards, sometimes someone will mention something and that part of me pops right back in and I just start to talk again. And if you're familiar with my energy, you can tell the difference energetically that, oh, that's not necessarily Chuck that's there any longer. But so it doesn't necessarily take a long period of time. The first time when I do this, I'll settle down for a little bit and then we'll start. And I have a little idea about how we're going to start today, but usually I don't have too much of it. Anyway, so that's just a little brief summary of uh, of these types of events anyway. But like you said, you've already done a little of this anyway. So, but if there's nothing as far as a question is concerned about anything I've said, then we'll get into it, I guess.
It's all yours. Yeah.
So once again, we would greet all of you and express our appreciation for your participation in the events tonight. Because as we have mentioned previously, your participation adds quite a bit to our exploration of consciousness as well. So we thank you for that. So as you have all become familiar with the various ways to shift and move your consciousness, one of the things that you've probably all become familiar with is the idea of paying attention to the emotions that you would like to have lead your life and the effect that those can have on, shall we say, steering your life in various directions. And so we mention this because that ability to choose which emotions you would like to use in any particular moment helps you to understand the relationship that you're building with the rest of yourself. Because what that signifies to you is that you are choosing, perhaps we could also say building, a greater connection of trust with you, with that encompassing aspect of what you actually are. The more that you do that, the gentler that you can be with yourself, the more patience you can have with yourself, the more loving ways you can embrace yourself, the more tenderness you can have for yourself, the more gentleness you can have for yourself. And then, in turn, you're able to express that to all the individuals that you contact throughout your day. And you're able to do this because as your relationship with the rest of yourself grows, you become solid in your understanding that you're the one that's creating the experience of your reality. You become increasingly familiar with how you are doing that. You become increasingly familiar with the importance that your choice plays as you do that. There is never a moment that goes by in your life where you're not choosing how you want to respond to that moment. Never a moment where you don't have choice. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that your choices may not be difficult in that time. They may, in fact, be difficult in that time. In those moments where they're not exceedingly difficult, if you can, make the choice that feels right for you to make in that moment. You will find that if you can do that, your life then will shift and move in alignment with the choice that you just made. And we will suggest to you that as your shifting period progresses, you will see those types of responses to those choices that are a little difficult for you to make occur more rapidly than what they have in the past. The more encompassing you is much more now, we'll phrase it like this, at the ready to show you what choices in that direction will do for your life than used to be the case. And this is because of the motion that all of you are involved in. You're all aware that if you are on this planet right now, you are an active participant in the movement that all of you are going through. As a result of that, all of the choices that you make affect your life in more dramatic ways. Or we might phrase it this way, and then we'll clarify your lack of choices. Now, of course, a lack of choice is not really not choosing. It's a choice of inactivity. Still, it is a choice, of course. So this is important to understand in that regardless of what's going on, you will always make a choice. Whether you involve yourself in a process or not, it's your choice to do that. This is always true for you. The closer you get to the awareness of yourself, the more you will understand the true nature of your freedom to make choice, a freedom that you have always had. This experience in this type of a physical reality, as you're all aware, was a choice. You made it as a choice from a place where you knew that not only you, but nobody else that you're participating with could actually be harmed in what it is you're doing here. Because you are, in fact, a consciousness. You are energy. You express yourself in this way, but your true nature is unable to be harmed in any way, shape, or form. You know that coming into this. It is, however, as you've heard others say as well, a challenging play to create and then to participate in for yourself. It's similar to maybe on your planet, individuals that might cross your Amazon jungle for the first time, or the people who landed on the East Coast of the United States and decided to cross the country to see what's on the other side, or those individuals who jumped in a small ship in Europe and decided to sail across this body of water that they had no idea what was on the other side and ended up someplace else, right? Those are the types of individuals that you are. You would not be in this dimension if that was not true of you. You believe that exploring the deeper nature of yourself is a strange thing to do, is sometimes an unsettling thing to do. We will suggest to you the opposite is actually much more true. This is a very unnatural environment to you because typically you're aware of all of what's going on around you. You're aware of all of your choices. You're aware of all of what his consciousness is doing around you. And you have created an environment for yourself where that is not seemingly, experientially true. It's a very, in those terms, unnatural experience for you. Adventurous souls, shall we say, you indeed are. There are not, as you've heard from others, many dimensions, and it is primary physical dimensions that allow you to create the types of scenarios that you create within this one, where these types of things are done. But you also knew what the payoff would be. You also knew the exhilaration that would come from exploring a place that seemingly was so limited, to find out from within the experience that it was nothing like that. And this is what all of you have chosen to do in this time period, is to be amongst those who are going to discover much more of who and what they are within the experience. When you first began this experience, your form was much more dreamlike, shall we say, and you experimented with many things on this planet, many forms of animals, of yourselves, of many different things from that type of a position. And then, shall we say, in terms of linear time, slowly you became increasingly physical. Within this shift, once you have finished this shift, which will be approximately 50 years, in a still very physical form, your awareness will be hugely broadened compared to what it is right now. We've mentioned this to these individuals previously. The area of consciousness that you term transition, which is where you will find yourself, where you would find yourself typically after what you call death, you will walk through that place as easily as you walk on your planet. You will navigate dream time the same way you navigate your planet. You will navigate other dimensions of reality in the same way you navigate this dimension now, and you will do it in a knowing way. The changes that are going to happen in all of your lives are something that, as you sit in your chairs, you cannot at this moment imagine for yourselves. It is beyond your ability to imagine them yet, because you have to rely on this experience to use your imagination, and it will be nothing like this experience. The freedom that you will have to interact with the planet life, with the animals, with yourselves, will be something that at this time would be the wildest science fiction movie that you could possibly imagine. But you have to move from here to there. Now, of course, that's already who you are. So you're moving into something that you thoroughly understand at another level of yourself. But doing that will take these qualities that we just mentioned: tenderness, lovingness, things of that nature, initially towards yourself. Regardless of how you think you might be missing things, how you may be thinking that you do things wrong, anything of that nature, realize that none of that can ever be true, actually. There is no action within consciousness that is a wasted action. You can never do anything wrong. Can you do things that make your life seem more challenging? Certainly you can do that. But you cannot do something that's wrong. It's not possible within the all of consciousness. So as you navigate your lives, be your own best friend in that. Be your own best supporter if you can. And if you can't, look for those individuals that can be. Find yourself amongst individuals that see only the fantastic things that you do as much as you possibly can, because that is the truth of your being, are those qualities. Will tell you that all of those in our position, as we bring our attention to all of you, what we recognize with all of you is you are always your own worst critic. And again, it's only because the energy that you experience is what's reflected back from inside of you that you have other people around you that seem to be your worst critic as well. Now, this doesn't mean that, especially because of the conditioning that you've had within your physical dimension, that if somebody treats you badly, that you ignore that completely. Certainly move away from the situation or take whatever action you deem is necessary in that moment. But understand, too, that those things would not have occurred unless there is something within you that drew that situation to you. Now, this doesn't mean that that same quality exists within you. You may find yourself within that situation to move beyond a particular way of seeing things, that particular situation gives you the best opportunity to be able to do. There are many things to understand. And this is a thing that we see too many people do. In fact, individuals who have been exploring especially, they tend to look at something that goes on in a situation and think that that exact thing has to be what's going on within them. Frequently, that is not the case. It's an opportunity to see, first of all, it's an opportunity to be accepting of the other person's choices, regardless of what they are, and not necessarily perhaps so accepting of maybe the behavior that they directed perhaps at you, but accepting instead of all the things that are going on within them that cause them to express themselves in the way that they just did. Because if they didn't have so much going on within themselves like that, they would never express themselves in that way. And so accept that they have challenges and accept that they express themselves through their challenges sometimes. And then accept your preferences as well, whatever they may be, and find yourself in those situations that support your preferences. Sometimes that's a difficult thing for individuals to do. But believe me, your preferences are your inner self, your wider self, your deeper self, your more encompassing self, whatever way you want to say that. It's one of the ways that that aspect of you speaks to you about what the best path for you is in this existence, is through your preferences, your genuine preferences. If they are being colored by something else, by worry, by anxiety, by fear, by whatever, then of course they're not your genuine preferences. But pay attention to what your genuine preferences are. Choose those in every moment that you can. Again, choice is a very important thing for you to do. So The idea of tenderness, the idea of sweetness, the idea of lovingness, those types of emotions, the more you can generate those in yourself, for your life, for your planet, for individuals around you, not only helps you to understand the interaction and the relationship you're having with the more encompassing you, but facilitates an opening to have more of that relationship. Because that aspect of you wants you to understand that you are so much the driver of your experience that you can trust in your experience in a way that you will only need to bring forward those types of emotions eventually, shall we say, within your experience. So in this moment, that's what we will share. If there's clarification, if there's other questions, if there's other directions you would like to go, we'd be happy to address those as well.
Margaret, can you come forward, please?
Hello, Margaret. You're a little bit soft.
Wait, hold on. Is this better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I have two questions. One's very easy, and the other one's just a curiosity question. So I noticed that when you're channeling, your eyes are open, and I've noticed from one of the other videos from a different channeler that said that some people channel with their eyes open, some people channel with their eyes closed, and their preference was the eyes closed because over time, because some people see things in their visions as they're channeling, and if we remain or keep the eyes open down the road, it just messes up their eyesight. Is that true?
We would say that the beliefs that all of you utilize in your physical reality are quite powerful things. And so if an individual leans in that direction, they may in fact have those experiences. For our experience with Chuck, it's nothing that we need to concern ourselves with. So it's no problem for us.
So it's basically a belief system.
It is indeed.
Good to know. Okay. The other thing too, they say that everyone is able to channel because it's our natural birthright, and because it's not something that I have tapped into at the moment because this whole journey is new. Is once we awaken and we start to get our gifts back, channeling being one of them. And like you said, it's the experience of what it is that we want to feel, the emotions, the experience, and things like that. Are there like moments where maybe my higher self would say, "Oh, I want you to travel over here," or "Oh, I want you to do this instead," and things like that. And my human body says, "Well, I don't know if I want to do it at the moment." And what happens to that?
So you always have those situations. So when you mention the term awakening, if in fact what you're speaking of is the moment on your planet, and it will vary for different individuals, when an individual becomes aware of who they actually are, the channeling phenomenon will no longer be necessary. In fact, this phenomenon will come to an end when all of you have reached the point where you understand who you actually are, because it will no longer be necessary. You will all be in communication with that part of yourself that has all the information at its fingertips, equal to any channeled source you've ever seen on the planet. In fact, it will be beyond that because there will be no filter between you and the information that you're now in association with. So this phenomenon will no longer be in existence when that occurs for all of you. As far as at this point is concerned, that's typically been the case. When you say the body, what you're really talking about is you're talking about your body being influenced by your psyche, or maybe you could call it your ego or the conditioned aspect of yourself, because your body will follow your direction. Even though the body itself is its own consciousness, because of the interaction you have within this dimension, it follows your direction, which means your beliefs as well. Because the body left to its own devices and not encumbered by your beliefs will do remarkable things for you. Diseases would heal, scrapes and cuts and things would heal. You would find yourself in perfect health. You would find that, in fact, you would not age in the way that all of you are traditionally used to your body appearing as the concept of a linear time moves for you. There are many things that your body would do without you steering the ship, but in fact, that's what you do with it. That's the collaboration that goes on. And so, yes, there are many times that the more encompassing you, the deeper you will share information with you, and you may very well decide to do something different. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Whatever the reason is where you choose to do something different, if it's some sort of a fear or anxiety or worry or something like that, well, then you perhaps have become a little bit more familiar with it, and you can choose to understand what that's about. If it's something different, if it's a different choice, then it's just that. It's a different choice, and that's okay as well. That aspect of you is its position is not to run your life for you. It is to suggest courses of action that you can take. Because again, you have total freedom to choose. Now, of course, you see yourself as separate from that you, and that's never been the case. It's kind of like if you think of the 5-year-old you, and then the 6-year-old you, and the 7-year-old you, and the 8, the 9, the 10, all the way up to the you now. All of those were you, just like this you is like the 10-year-old you, or whatever you want to say, compared to that you, what you call the deeper self. It's still you. There is no difference. You're only having a different experience here, but you're always that you. So yes, you will have those types of things go on. Now, once you have established a way of understanding that that information is coming from you or another source that you trust, then what you can do is you can make those choices safe in the knowledge that they will be something beneficial for your exploration, for your life. Now, that doesn't mean that on occasion that might not result in some type of a challenge. But if they suggest something like that for you, that means that you are prepared, largely anyway, for that challenge. And you will learn through that challenge more about yourself. At least the opportunity is very much there for you to do that. If that answers your question.
Yes, it does. I think basically because I'm the only one in my family or in my immediate family that is more aware of this whole process and the connections to back to our higher self. Whereas with my kids, because I'm a mama bear, they're both, I know they're on their own timeline and their own path, that they're not into it, that I'm just afraid that as I want to do things or as like you said, maybe my higher self wants to put challenges, but it conflicts with my duties to my kids, that I just don't want that clash or that I don't know how to express it.
So how old are your children right now?
They're adults. One's in university studying, 2 more years left, and the other one is totally not into the spirituality, and he's in his 20s, early mid-20s.
So we will suggest this to you. So they're no longer in that regard dependent on you, meaning they're not 6 or 7 or 8. And at this age, they are, of course, are free to make whatever choices they want to make. We'll suggest to you that perhaps as difficult as in some situations it may seem, but if you make the choices that for you feel correct in that moment, regardless of how they feel about it, you will be impacting them in a positive way. You just may not see it for a number of months or years. But you choosing to make a decision that for you feels right gives them a very powerful example.
That
And
I agree with, yes.
and it also provides them with an example of an individual being able to make a choice when what they have around them for influence says that they should make a different choice. That also is a very powerful thing for them to be able to see you make, and then perhaps to embrace for themselves as well. And many, many other things will happen also. So we would tell you, suggest to you, we would say, that attempt to be true to you. in those interactions. Because again, it is your life. You're the only one that's going to experience this life. Nobody else will experience your life. Only you will. So make the choices in your life, if you can, that are genuine choices for you. Attempt not to, and we realize it can be difficult, but attempt not to worry about how other people feel about the choices that you make. What you will find as you do that, again, because you're the one that's creating your experience of reality, is you will find those individuals will do one of two things. They will either become less resistant to the choices that are natural for you to make, or they may choose to move out of your life. This is unlikely with your children, especially at that age. You'll probably see the other thing happen. But we would urge you, because you'll be happier with your life, to make the choices for yourself that feel right for you to make, for your existence.
I am. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Ray, please.
And thank you to Say too for coming forth with your wisdom and guidance again. I have a question about sacred circuits, which can project our consciousness to other realms or connect with other beings. Are those utilized by other beings who are involved in open contact to communicate with each other, or do they just bypass that directly and just communicate with their telepathic means?
So describe, if you would, for us a little bit, the phenomenon that you speak of in a little bit more detail.
Okay, well, sacred circuits are a Sasani phrase, and they are representational of calling cards or permission slips. They can also be found in crop circles and that sort of thing, which are interdimensional messages which are expressed in a 2D form for the most part.
And then your question again would be,
Well, I know they're used, and they're a form of, they're a form we can experience with our consciousness outside of the physical reality from our physical reality. But I was wondering if other beings use those to communicate with themselves as well, since obviously language as we know it is not used for those exchanges.
so indeed. So first of all, if you are utilizing those symbols on your planet, any other aspect of consciousness that's associated with those larger aspects of you that have a portion of themselves focused in this dimension also have the ability to become familiar with those symbols that you use, however they're being used by you, or whatever other aspects of consciousness are sharing those with you. They will have a familiarity with those. They'll have a familiarity with how they're being used within your reality. There are cultures that utilize symbols like that. In music, when a musician looks at a note in your dimension on your planet, there's many times a resonance that they are familiar with that that note would create, potentially with the instrument that they're most familiar with. In other cultures, when they create symbols like that, some of them, they imbue those symbols with sometimes a great deal of information. And visualizing the symbol can release that information to certain individuals. Touching that symbol, it really depends on the culture and how they have chosen to develop the idea of symbols that work in that way. But yes, there are cultures that do that as a regular part of their culture. You have some of those things in your culture. There will be individuals that will express a little bit more of that, potentially a great deal more of that as you move closer to your shift. it depends on the cultures that they are already associated with and how much of that they will bring forward in their life as they move forward into their deeper understanding of themselves. But yes, there are cultures that do that. And in fact, there are those cultures that when a culture shares a symbol with your culture, there is a collaboration, we will say, between your collective higher selves and these individuals, so that the whole of your collective understands that that idea can be utilized within your experience. That is the way that you set that up for yourself. And then the symbols show up somehow on your planet. But your collective higher selves are aware of that particular situation, the information that will be contained in those. They know the idea, and they choose to use the idea within your experience, because without all of you, in that sense, agreeing, you wouldn't see those things from quote unquote other cultures in your experience.
Excellent. And by cultures, I'm assuming you're not just meaning Earth cultures, but extraterrestrial cultures as well.
Correct. Individuals from other dimensions that have some interest in what it is that you're doing here and are able to influence consciousness in this dimension many times with the aid of your collective consciousness, because your collective consciousness is very much woven through what you experience here in your dimension. So when individuals from other dimensions choose to express information here, that information is conveyed through all of you, your higher selves, the collective consciousness of all of you. And it's all of you that, in fact, are actually expressing that information into your reality. Because again, it's you that's creating your reality.
Great. So I guess anytime we have a particular language or method of communication, then that communicates to other beings that, hey, we can reach them in this way, should we choose to.
Indeed. Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Miles, please.
Hello, to say too. It's just wonderful to see you again.
You as well, my friend.
Thank you. So I want to talk about the model that I use to navigate this reality and get you to comment on it. So in my world, everything is all that is. There's nothing in existence that isn't all that is. And therefore, everything at its core is both love and infinite. And that everything showing up in my life is here because it loves me unconditionally and has agreed to follow my script. So therefore, every blade of grass, every bird, every leaf, every person, every word they say, everything happening in my life, whether it's in the universe or on the planet, is actually a reflection of me. And further, that reflection, all of it is all of it is new every instant.
So before you go further, just because you
That's it.
thank you very much. So, new every instant, yes. But your interaction here is a collaborative interaction. Now, it depends on the perspective that you want to take. Do you want to say that as all that is, you create the entirety of your experience, and all oversouls, shall we say, we'll use that term in a moment, being a part of all that is really just you expressing itself? you could take that position if you wanted to. However, something a little bit closer to what you experience is this, is that all of you, from those immense aspects of what you all are collaborators in this experience. And that collaboration happens behind the scenes. That's where all the exchange of the ideas is going on. That's where all the choices are being actually experienced. Everything that's going on that you then project into your physical reality is all happening there. Okay, we'll just call it behind the scenes. And then what you do is you filter all of those choices that all of you are making collaboratively through your consciousness, through your belief systems, through your expectations and all the rest of those things. And you have that experience show up for you in your physical reality. And that is a moment by moment by moment by moment by moment thing. Yes. So, do all those individuals need to follow your script? No, they do not. But is then what you experience on this end very much a part of your script? Yes. But is it perfectly that? No. Why? Because this experience for you is about exploring, like you always do, a reality that is about surprise, that is about things happening that you didn't expect to happen. And so there's a lot of activity that shows up in your physical dimension that is, to this portion of you, not necessarily part of your script. But it's meant to draw you into more of what you are. And in that, if you trust that more encompassing aspect of you, and if you've moved beyond most of the very strong challenges that you've happened in your life, which most of you have at this point, then you can be comfortable, we'll put it that way, with the idea that whatever the challenge is that's come forward for you, it is much more an opportunity than anything else. An opportunity to become familiar in that moment with the ability that you actually have to alter the reality that you're experiencing in front of you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So just to be clear, so in my model, I definitely believe that everything is cooperating with everything else every instant. So that's
Yes, cooperation, but what is cooperation? Consciousness is about basically two things: creativity and the experience of what it creates. That is the cooperation that always goes on within consciousness. To collaboratively create an experience. Within this experience, you have judgmentalism that you utilize. Not that that is incorrect or wrong, where some things are right, some things are wrong, some things are good, some things are bad, those types of things. But as far as consciousness is concerned, all forms of creation are equal. All forms of creation are valid. That doesn't mean that within the experience, you cannot make those delineations, because of course, those are a part of the experience that you find yourself within. At this point, anyway, that will loosen up, because what you will do, of course, is as you let go of your anxiety, your fear, and your worry, and you begin to trust yourself much more and you understand your process, you will have no need for those types of things, because you will interact with each other in a very different way.
so my view was that since they're infinite, just like I'm infinite, that the part of them that chooses to take part in my life is the part of them that's in alignment with me, with my vibration.
the part of them that interacts with you, shall we say, in the template level reality and the blueprint level reality, whatever you would like to say in dream time, that aspect of them is aligned with you only in the regard that you are collaborating in this experience. Past that point, if you have drawn that individual to you, not only physically, which eventually, of course, will be the case, but shall we say in this moment, spiritually, it's because in collaboration with the rest of you, there's certain experiences that you would like to have within the physical dimension. And so you draw those individuals in. They have a particular way that they would like to have their experience go. The two of you come together. That information and those expressions are come to in the template level reality. And then you will filter those from that layer, shall we say, into your experience here. And again, as you do that, you would utilize your beliefs about how this reality comes together, about all the various things that seem to be true to you about life as you do that. And the version of that individual that stands in front of you then will be the version that you have filtered from that more non-physical experience that the two of you are having together. This physical experience that you have is a filtered experience of that. And it's filtered in a way that has a great potential to serve you in just the way that you choose to explore this reality, but in becoming increasingly familiar with who and what you are as well.
And the last point is that if they're in my life, I'm almost certainly in their life performing the same function for them that they perform for me according to what their needs are.
Most typically, you are in their existence also, but not always. And more typically, you may not be serving the same role because, again, it's up to them to utilize your energy in the way that serves them in that moment. Now, again, there is, and we understand, of course, you have a perspective about your existence, but even probable realities, if you walk into a car dealership and you buy a car and it's, let's say, blue in color, as you open up a variety of probable realities, that does not mean that necessarily you walk into another car dealership, another probable you, and you buy a car, the same car in a different color, or even if it's a different car. That energy can be reconfigured, and you may walk into a grocery store instead and buy something that's perhaps blue in color. These variations in the way that your energy is spread through consciousness and the way you express it in various focus personalities are things that you'll become increasingly familiar with as you become increasingly familiar with who and what you are. Realize that to this point, the information that's been shared with all of you has been shared in a way that made use of your experience so you could widen into more of who and what you are in a way that was relatively comfortable for all of you. So the concepts, the ideas, the experiences that you've all had here within this dimension have been heavily utilized to explain things to you to this point. You will see less and less of that happening as you move into your next 5 years, your next 10 years, and beyond that. Because those conceptual parts of yourself will come more to the forefront. You will understand information that is not familiar with you in a physical way more than what you have in the past. That trait also will be something that will accelerate as you move into your shift because it's a natural part of who you are.
Thank you, Desetu. What a pleasure.
You're very welcome, my friend.
Sparkling Diamond, please.
Hello.
Hello.
My question is, can you give me any tips or ways that I could interpret my dreams for myself?
Yes. we would say initially to utilize your own life as a template. In other words, you have a variety of resources on your planet about dream interpretation. If you're closely aligned with a particular culture, and if the symbols of that culture are in that literature, then you can utilize those symbols to a particular degree. However, look first to what that means to you in your life. If you see a bird, what time of year does that bird show up for you? What does that bird mean to you when you see it in your physical life? What does the color of that bird mean to you? What does the song of that bird mean to you in your physical life? And all the symbolism that you see in your dreams is like that. Try to look at your own existence first and get a feeling for, okay, what does this mean in my life? How have I been influenced in my life by these things? This will aid you in this as well. Now, there are some things that the symbolism does not strike you within physical reality. Typically, a dwelling of some type is a representation of you, all of you. You typically find in dream time that you will walk into a home. It could be a small home, yet as you explore the home, it has room after room after room after room, and they seem to have no end, which is, of course, is a symbol of that non-ending you, the higher self, shall we say, whatever term you want to give it. Vehicles are typically an expression of this you as you move through your journey, regardless of what the vehicle is. You can pay attention to the shape the vehicle's in. Is it a fast vehicle? Is it having some difficulties? Perhaps you may find that in your dream time, you find yourself in a place, you park your vehicle and you go explore. And then as you're leaving the dream time, you're having a hard time finding your vehicle again. That is an indication of you preparing yourself to move back into your physical reality. And that phase being a little unfamiliar to you yet as you do that. You can utilize dream imagery books that are out there, but pay attention to what feels correct for you as you read those. And then pay attention to your dreams and see how those interactions of your dreams actually work as you record your dreams in whatever way you record your dreams. And we would suggest to do that for you. There's many things that you can learn about yourself through your dreams. There are things that they can tell you about that you won't find other places many times. You allow yourself a great deal of freedom in your dreams. One of the things that we can suggest for you to do is there a state that we like to phrase, and we've heard others phrase it, called the Bardo state. And this is a state that is you actually pause at just before you move into dream time, and you pause at as you're leaving dream time. And if you choose to, practice becoming familiar with that area of your consciousness. And when you're there, especially if you're familiar with it as you're leaving dream time, ask to become familiar with what all of your dream symbolism means. And you will be given all that information in that space. It will become very clear to you. You won't have to guess about any of what that symbolism meant. It will be quite clear to you about what it all meant. But it takes practice. It's like anything that you do in your life. If you want to play piano, you have to sit at the piano and practice the piano. You want to become good at cutting hair, you have to cut hair for a while to become good at it. It's the same thing with reacquainting yourself with your own consciousness and the various parts of your own consciousness. It takes a little bit of practice. Even though it's you, you have to refamiliarize yourself with those energies of yourself. So by doing it, you're creating the environment to be able to have a deeper understanding of what it is that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anita, please.
Yes. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk with you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I had a question. I need some clarification on something that you had mentioned. When you talked about our advancement in our experience of other dimensions that's going to be happening more and more over the next 50 years, is that being made possible by technology and AI or something else?
It's not being made possible by technology and AI because you're the ones that are creating technology and AI. But within your experience, you're utilizing those expressions as tools to allow you to explore those aspects of yourselves in ways that in these moments seem a little easier for you to do, more natural. You you are deeply into what you've termed in the past your information age, which is all about these types of things. And so you will utilize that idea to make exploring those types of things more comfortable for you, more easily accessible for you. And then as you utilize those tools and as you expand on the ability of those tools, you will reach a place where there will be an interface between that and an understanding that it's actually you that that information has always been coming from. And of course, what you'll find also is that there will be a greater and greater number of individuals around your planet that will have then already have reached that understanding within themselves. And because that will be true, that type of information will be more easily accessible by all of you. So yes, you will use
Okay.
those things to advantage to do that, but they are not in that way creating your process. They are used by you to facilitate your process.
Okay. Um, I had uh, one more question about something that you said. I'd like to know how we can release our control over our body to allow it to heal. How do we? Because you had mentioned that we exert a lot of control with our belief system over our body.
So the surest way to do this for you is to continue on your journey to become increasingly familiar with the rest of you in whatever way, shape, or form that exploration takes. It can be exploring dream time. It could be exploring this type of phenomenon. It could be exploring automatic writing. It could be exploring meditation. It could be exploring out-of-body experiences. It could be exploring your connection with nature. There are many, many things that will do that because what you need to become familiar with is the collaboration of you and your body and the ideas that you're utilizing to historically, we'll say in this moment, even though you're doing it still, create your experiences. The ideas of disease, and they are ideas, are aspects of your reality that are quite true to all of you yet. And again, there's nothing wrong with this. It's part of your experience here, right? You developed ideas about the body and you utilize these types of things in those interactions. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Becoming increasingly familiar with the natural ability of the body, with the collaborative action that's going on between this expression of your consciousness, by that I mean what you call you and your body, and that your body is in fact created by, perhaps we'll say in this moment, energy, because it's a term that you understand on your world. If you think about it scientifically, quote unquote, your body is made up of cells. Those cells are made up of molecules. Those molecules are made up of atoms. Those atoms, if you go deep enough into your sciences, are made up of particles. Those particles show up, quote unquote, when they do, because of the collapse of other phenomenon. Some call them waveforms, whatever you may say. The idea is that your body is never static. It's always dynamic. It's always shifting and moving. It doesn't seem to be the case when you look at it. Change in your body seems for you to take time. So as you become increasingly familiar with the connection between you and you and your soul, you and your higher self, you and your deeper self, you and whatever aspect, whatever name you would like to use for that you, the more you become familiar with these concepts that you apply to your experience, there are mechanisms that you utilize to have your experience here. So, can we tell you that there's some simple thing that you can do that will allow you to do that? Unfortunately, at this time, there is not. It will take you moving more deeply into your exploration because these beliefs that you have are incredibly powerful about what your body can and can't do. Now, does that mean at the same time you're not loosening your boundaries on that? You are. Look around you and see how people in the last 40 and 50 years are living, in your terms, older all the time, are more capable as they age all the time. There's many, many things that are going on. You are discovering ways of curing more and more diseases, right? All of these things are ways of utilizing your technology to move towards your more natural state. When you get to a particular place, you will realize that that's the way you have orchestrated it for yourselves. Then you will understand the big picture. Until then, no way of moving forward into your understanding is wrong. No way is wrong. It's all a way that will serve you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Tony, please.
Hello, Desatu. Nice to meet you, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I have sort of a personal question and possibly one or two sub-questions to that question, and I don't mind sharing it with the public because I feel like I want to teach some other people some things that are happening to my life that they can implement into their life. So the question is this. I've been spiritual on a spiritual journey for past, 20, 25, 30 years. But it wasn't up until maybe February of this year that everything kind of started to, let's just say, explode. And what I mean by that, I am in direct contact and communication with my guides, with my higher self. I get the answers to minor or major questions, internally or externally, in direct response to my body. So basically, if I'm asking a question, I might get the chills, the full body chills, or something like that. If it's yes, if it's no, it's a different expression. My question to you is this, let's call it awakening or waking up, has happened in such a fast pace to the point that I am stalling and trying to ask myself, is this really happening? So I know that prior to incarnating and having a human experience and really wanting to do that and being now proud as a human in a human body, right? I know that we all have designed our life. Sub question is, did I really design this to happen at this point of time, this fast, so I can learn what I can withstand? Or something else is happening here that I am not really sure. And a third, as of last night, I do have a new guide for a very specific reason. So things are happening in a really fast pace. So I'm kind of hoping that you can understand where I'm going with these questions.
So, in the length of time that you've explored, there have been moments where you've become a little bit antsy, perhaps we'll say, about changes happening in your life faster than what they were. And there were two reasons, primarily for you, that up until now, you didn't see a lot of that go on in your life. One is because you very much wanted to explore the things that you were exploring then without necessarily adding this other component to it, as strange as that may sound to you. Another is that there was hesitancy on your part about moving into this because, of course, there is a lot of information around within these circles that describe a wide variety of things, a wide variety of challenges of various types that can show up in someone's life as they begin to open the doors to these types of things. So, should you be surprised that these changes are occurring for you so quickly? We would say no, not in this time period. You should not be surprised. It can happen to any of the individuals that are with us tonight. Now, the challenges that you're still having help you to understand that even though there's a much more aware you waiting for you, shall we say, at a particular place in your journey, you have had this experience in terms of time for a while now. And your beliefs in all those things are still there. Understand that in your journey, what you're not going to do, any of you, is divest yourself of your beliefs. Instead, what you're doing is you're moving to a place where you can choose to use them when you want to. And so the practice you will have is to have experiences that will help you to understand that, to realize that there is something that I believe about me and my reality that is filtering my energy in this moment, and I'm having an experience as a result of that. I could choose this filter over here instead to filter that energy through, and I would have a different experience. That's the exercise that you're all going through, to realize how it is you choose to have your experiences. So the changes that you're going through right now and the connections you're having with other aspects of yourself and guides are there to give you a beginning place to trust in that information in a deeper way than what you've been able to before. And as you move into that, you'll find that the challenges that are also there in your life will move more by the wayside and your life will flow smoother for you. But that large step for you in this moment is a more encompassing trust that will allow more specific information to show up for you, as well as allow you to trust that information in a way that will grow deeper as the months go by. As that happens, the challenges will become less. They will become less intense.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Angie, please.
Hello. Thank you for taking my question.
Welcome.
Guess my question's kind of similar to some of these most recent ones. In your talk, you were speaking about how everything is being orchestrated behind the scenes with our higher selves and such. And my question is, how do we trust our higher selves and such in these ways? Because it seems the mode of operation that they're using is so compassionatelessness. It just seems so unnecessarily cruel most of the time for me. And I can't, to me, it doesn't sound true to say this is the way it had to be. It had to be this cruel for you. I feel like there are so many possibilities. And to have been dragged through the things that I've been dragged through, it hasn't taught me to trust. It has just taught me how my higher self operates. And it's like I'm learning more about my higher self, and it's a personality, or not a personality, a disposition. I don't know what you would call it, that I don't like, uh, to not judge, but just, and maybe in the society view, it's a personality that I would not prefer. So it's hard for me to get on stable ground.
So we're going to suggest to you that what you're actually experiencing is not necessarily the actions of your higher self, but they're the results of the filter that you're living your life through, the belief systems that you've acquired in your life. Those are the things that have tossed your life around the way that they have. So there are powerful influences around individuals as they, first of all, are born into a particular culture at a particular time period in history. They are energetically associated with the events on the planet at that time. They are familiar with the reactions of individuals around them when all those various things are happening, as well as the things that go on in the town that you grew up in, and the things that are happening in not only your immediate family, but your expanded family. And so you are open to all of those things in those times when you are very young. And you become familiar with the way that people around you respond to those things. In that, there's a conditioning that occurs with you, and there are certain beliefs that come to the forefront about how life needs to be met, about the way that you need to approach your life, about what works in life and what does not. And so, in a time period when the idea of defense is going to fall by the wayside, ideas that involve that particular idea strongly will serve to bring you challenges in your life. So really what it's about is not so much that what you've experienced in your life primarily is specifically an exploration that the high of you has orchestrated. Because what goes on is there's a broad intent to your exploration. It doesn't have anything to do with specifics. It's a broad intent for your exploration. Then as you come into this, there's a lot of influence that goes on that colors the way that you look at your reality, that colors the way that you respond to your reality, that colors what you believe is true about your reality in many, many ways. Within other time periods, your 1800s, your early 1900s, individuals did not have the opportunity to move beyond those influences the way all of you have the opportunity to now. They lived their lives, shall we say, encaged by those influences. That was just what life was. It is not what life is now for all of you. However, it does take a recognition of the things that influenced your life, a recognition that of the things that influenced the truths that you use in your life, the way that you see life, the way that you believe you need to respond to life. And it's moving differently within those that will change the tenor of your life then. It's paying attention to those things. If you pay attention to your emotional responses to things as they happen in your life, and you ask yourself in that moment, in a genuine way, why is it I responded like that to that event? But it has to be a genuine way, and it may take several days to really uncover why it is you responded in that way. You will begin to get some insight into the things that have influenced your life from the why your life turns out the way it does as you go about your life day to day to day. But we'll suggest to you that that would be a good practice, that as the emotions pop up for you, and don't do it with everyone that pops up during the day, pick the strongest one in the morning, pick the strongest one in the afternoon, of what you would call challenging emotions or negative emotions, whatever term you want to say, and then investigate that. Why did I respond with that emotion in that circumstance? And try to understand it as deeply as you possibly can. and it will give you insight on the conditioning that you utilize as you meet your life. It'll help you understand how it is you see yourself, how it is you see life, how it is you see the things that happen in life. Where in life you see yourself as a victim, where in life you see yourself as somebody who's able to make the choices that you want to make or not. Self-exploration really is the key in all of this. Don't look to those far-flung areas of yourself. Can it be valuable? Yes, it can be valuable. Can those aspects of you aid you in your exploration? They can. But in these periods, when you have these types of things, look to what influences you, what of your physical reality influences and has influenced you, and be familiar with those first. Learn to work with those and move beyond those first. Then concern yourself, more deeply anyway, with those more esoteric aspects of yourself, perhaps we'll say. Because you have to become familiar with what it is that is actually lending the quality to your existence that is doing that for you.
Well, it's interesting because I really do look at the outside world with the way we have all been speaking about it. We create our own reality, all of that. The only thing I ever struggle with is my higher self aspect. It's like I just have a really hard time trusting. I don't have any problems with the outside world at all for the most
Provide
part.
us, if you could, with one example of why it would be that you have difficulty trusting your higher self.
I will get these astounding, and I'm not just talking seeing a 444 and right after I will get astounding, like blindsiding kind of synchronicities that there's no way to mistake what they were like. Wow. And I'll be like, I I guess this is obviously a smack me in the face. I'm really supposed to take this seriously and take this to heart. It's a message. And I get like these completely like they lead me down really horrible places. Just that were just I don't understand it. No lesson was learned from it that I could find, because I will sit and think, what on earth was that for? And so it just like who else brings synchronicities to me other than my higher self, right? Isn't that
Correct. So a question that we have for you is that the synchronicities that you have show up seem to open a pathway for you, a doorway for you to explore. And so then it feels to us like part of what is going on for you is as that occurs and as you begin that movement to continue to pay attention to how you feel about that exploration. And if in fact, as you begin to explore that, it doesn't feel correct to you, then again, that feeling is more information from you. And so to us, it feels like what you're doing or what you're providing the opportunity for yourself to do is to become familiar with more, shall we say, of the palette of the way you communicate with yourself. Because as you move down a path that seemed like it should be, according to the various signs and symbols, something that you should do, but as you move into it, it no longer feels like that, then again, understand that that's information from you that says, discontinue exploration and turn yourself and do something different. And it may be really just that. It may be that what you're doing for yourself is you're setting yourself up to be able to discern information in the midst of a direction that you've already chosen. And you may have to use that in times that we'll say in this moment might be important not only for you, but for you and other individuals. So to be able to continue to pay attention to the information that's showing up for you, even if you are initially led, because what's going to happen on your planet is that you're going to have changes in direction happen very, very rapidly at one point. And so as that occurs, being consistently tuned in to the information that comes to you from your higher self that directs you in different directions sometimes, even though now it's counter from the other direction, will be important for you to have. And so
Well,
we believe,
what if I don't get any once I'm on that direction? What if I'm not getting any
so
signs or
as you move down
feelings?
those paths into something that ends up feeling not good, ends up not being a good experience, there isn't a place
There was
in
never a
that
place.
exploration where it begins to feel like maybe this shouldn't be something that I'm exploring.
No, that's the thing. That's why I'm like, why no heads up? Why did I just get pummeled? You know what I mean? Like, and that's why it's so harsh, because I didn't see it coming, because I trusted my higher self. I was like, okay, this was a massive synchronicity, and there was no other anything.
So this is something that would have to be explored much more in depth, because we
Mm,
would have to get into experiences. We would have to talk to you about experiences, things that showed up for you as you were having those experiences, and then the ending in those experiences, to be able to talk about the way that you were interacting with yourself and your environment at that time. Um, a general answer to that particular thing in this moment will not be something that will help you, nor in this format will it be something that we will be able to provide with you either.
okay. All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Deseru. That is all that we have tonight. And as always, with immense gratitude for all that you share with us. Thank you.
Hmm.
And thanks,
So
Chuck.
Angie, if you would like to message me, certainly you and I can develop a dialogue. And as we do that, that aspect of myself and I can interact with you, and you can share information in that context where perhaps you can get some insight on some of those things then.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So, Chuck, are you back?
I am
Yeah.
more here than I was before, but
I get
but
you. 90% here.
but senior is still very much in residence at
Well,
the moment.
senior never
So-
leaves, and that's something that
No,
people need
but
to understand. You know, that
you know, when
senior
I
is
hang
always
out,
there.
especially with you guys, it seems to be that that the presence lingers for quite a while sometimes. And so,
We haven't heard you tonight say clearly that senior is your higher self.
yes, my higher self. Yeah, it's just, you know, I can't remember who I was mentioning this to, but maybe Lucy. Maybe a lot of you guys don't know Lucy. If you've been to my YouTube channel, Lucy's the individual that I interact with when we sit down and we do channeled sessions together just to share genuinely. She's been an explorer for a long time. But anyway, so I was chatting with her and I'm going, you know, I love the name Desatu, but sometimes it sounds a little formal. So, you know, I was thinking in terms of Chuck Jr. and Chuck Sr., because really that's actually where we're all headed anyway, is that awareness of ourself as that. So, you know, so every now and then I'll just toss that around too. So,
But that brings an interesting a little detail there that may serve everybody, which is the higher self is really you. Okay.
well, yeah, so this is where my exploration with Angie is going to be an interesting one.
It's going to be an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my own thoughts that came to me as that interaction was going on, and it is very layer. There's all kinds of things that a person needs to look at,
So
including.
I'm going to suggest that because of my knowledge of Lewis and things that pop into his mind, that Angie, he might be worth messaging also.
Yeah,
in that regard.
you're welcome to do that as well. I felt many layers in that she was sharing.
Yeah, it's been a crazy experience. How do I contact? Where do I contact you guys?
You are in the chat, right? You're in the
Mhm.
messenger chat, and if you go to the
Okay,
messenger
just go
chat,
there.
you're gonna be able to contact us directly on Messenger.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank
You
you.
know. Yeah.
And so
you're
if
welcome.
my last name is not being shown anyplace, it's CROM. So that's where you'll find me, Chuck Crom, if you search me on Messenger.
Yeah, but if you go to the chat and you go at the top of the chat, you open a little icon, you'll be able to have a menu, and you scan the menu, and there's something that says all the members of the chat. And if you touch that, everybody that's a member of the chat will be listed with their contact, direct messaging. You can click on them and you can direct message to them. You do it that way. Of course, Chuck is easy to find on Facebook because he also has a couple of, the
Yeah, too
embracing
many groups.
boundlessness. You have a few places to be contacted for sure. Anyway, so and you can always contact Ray as well. You know, he knows how to get a hold of all of us, right? Ray, I
And
think.
yes,
Is-
and you can
yeah.
friend High Vibe Channeling, and then all of the group members who are associated with that page will be on there as well.
Yeah, that's what I thought, that she was in that messenger thread. But if she's not, yeah, that's the first thing you need to do, basically.
She's there.
Exactly. And with that, Mr. Crom, thank you.
Oh, you're
Holy
welcome, guys.
Moses, you know, we went, I think 90 minutes here today with you or more, you know.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I appreciate
wow.
it. It's always a really enjoyable time to get together with all you guys. I like it a lot.
Well, it was beautiful. I think everybody was enjoying it tremendously. You know, even Heidi, that was just waiting in the wings, she said, "Let it go."
Yeah, sorry about that, Heidi.
This is going well.
That buddy of mine seemed to be on a roll or something. I don't know what the scoop was, but
It was flowing so nicely.
It was great.
Mhm.
So normally we take a little break, so let's just do that, you know, and let's call that break an 8-minute break. So